So Paige VanZant goes into this last fight, UFC 251, on the last fight of her contract. And she comes in openly stating she makes more money outside of the Octagon. She definitely deserves to get paid more. She had been saying that since 2019. And that she specifically didn't sign a new contract before this fight and that she was going to test free agency afterwards. Okay, that's great. I mean, really, legit. Multiple fighters have done it before. They've gone over to other organizations, be it ONE or Bellator, gotten better contracts, and it worked out great for them. So Paige VanZant says she's going to play it the same way. Now, I made a video about what I thought was going to happen in that fight with Amanda Ribas. I said that she was going to come out and get smoked, and she did. First fight, comes out, makes her look bad. Now, when you do that, and you weren't already a top fighter, not as far as like popularity and as far as the fans are concerned or anything like that. When I say a top fighter, I mean your skill set. You're like legitimately a top 5 fighter, which Paige VanZant was not. When you're not that person, and you come out on that last fight of your contract, and you get your head torn off, particularly early in the fight, it's not going to go well for you in the negotiations. Then on top of that, the boss man, Dana White, comes out at the post-fight press conference and says the exact same thing and tells her, yeah, you know, I think she should test free agency. I mean, more or less, that's his way of saying, we're not going to give you a big deal. We're not going to offer you something all extra juicy with a bunch of money that you think you know, quote unquote, deserve. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. That's what he came out when he said that. And I get it. Right? Why is the UFC going to spend extra money on her? What makes her special? Does she put extra people in the seats? Does she sell extra pay-per-views? Because to them, at the end of the day, it's just a business. And if you're not bringing in more dollars for them, they're not going to be willing to pay out more dollars for you. Think about her claim here. There's a few things I want to touch on, but think about her claim here. She comes into this fight and she says, I make more money outside the Octagon. Number one, do you think that's true? Well, you think about it, she came out, and I think the salaries got disclosed. She made about 50 grand for this fight. I think she was on a 46 and 46, which means she gets a guaranteed 46,000. If she wins, she gets another 46. She didn't win, obviously. I think there was some kind of like $5,000 type promotional bonus in there or something like that. Whatever. Call it 50 grand. She made 50 grand for this fight. That's not 50 grand for one night's work, like a lot of people may think. A lot of people may claim that that's great. That's 50 grand for one fight. She had a whole training camp up to this fight where she had to pay for a lot of things along with all of her living expenses, but you also have the sparring partners, any supplements that you're taking, if you need to get any gym time, anything like that. So she's got all of those expenses. So maybe she fights 2, maybe 3 times a year. So you're talking what? 100 grand, 150 grand? And the way the UFC works, she was making less going into this fight. I don't know what she made before this fight. Maybe it was like a 40 and 40 contract or something along those lines. I'm not really sure. Either way, even if you make 150 grand for the year, after taxes and expenses, that's going to come out to a lot less. So with her claim that she makes more money outside of the Octagon, when you think about all the endorsements that she may be doing, between clothing, between, you know, CBD products, which a lot of fighters seem to be getting endorsements with now, some kind of like vitamins and protein shakes, modeling that she does, Dancing with the Stars. Are you kidding? Or Instagram? How many people does she got following her on Instagram? Like 2 million or something? I absolutely believe that she makes more money than that outside of the Octagon. And guess what? While she's making it, she's not getting punched in the face. She's not getting choked. Nobody's threatening to break her arm. She's not getting kicked. There's a whole lot of good things, a whole lot of easier things happening when she's making that money outside of the Octagon than in it. So I believe that's a true statement. And I believe that she can continue to make money outside of the Octagon. It's a funny little situation. Because here's one of the other things that I wanted to mention. A while back, maybe a month, I don't know, 2 months, something like that. You know, we've got John Jones, we've got Jorge Masvidal. We've got a few different people who are in contract disputes or saying that they don't like the money that they're making from the UFC. So they're getting into these open fights with Dana White, back and forths going on. Talking about how much they're making and saying they deserve more. Looking at the percentage of the revenue that the UFC pays its fighters. It's become kind of a big thing lately, right? It's been in the forefront of the news when it comes to fighting. During that time period, Dana White had a famous quote. He said, fighting is not a career. Fighting is an opportunity. And a lot of people got upset by that, particularly a lot of fighters. I think they got upset by it because in their eyes, it was a shot. It was something derogatory. It was something negative. Because they think, I'm a professional. I show up and I train hard every single day. I give 100%. I sacrifice. I fly all over the place. Who knows where they go for camps, for the fights, different things. They're getting beat up, just nasty, kicked on, punched, wrestled to the ground, elbowed. It's a hard way to earn a living being a professional fighter. It's not easy. There's a lot easier things to do to make a buck than to be a professional fighter. So when Dana White came out with that comment, a lot of them got insulted. But I didn't take it that way. I don't think he meant it that way. He didn't mean it like you're some knuckle dragger and this is all you can do and it's a short opportunity. Be glad we give it to you. Right? I didn't take it like that. The way I took it was, you're not going to be a professional fighter when you're 50, 55, 60 years old. You can't start when you're 20 and do this for 40 years. It's not like being a salesman or an account manager. You have a much shorter window. Usually people are going to peak around late 20s? Maybe you hit 30 years old and you typically really start to peak. And then you're falling off by the time typically you start to decline when the top guys, they start to decline when they're 35, 37 maybe, something like that. They can fight a little bit longer, but they're no longer at the height of their powers. The average fighter, he's out of the game a lot earlier than that. And that's where the opportunity part comes in, because it offers you a platform that you otherwise wouldn't typically have, because you get all the marketing power and all the exposure that comes built in with the UFC. During your fighting career, you have this opportunity to reach more people and more eyeballs and do more things than you would otherwise. The UFC is a whole machine that was built that you get to jump into for this small period of time. So you get people like a Paige VanZant who just catapulted off of that. Right now she used her exposure in the UFC to build up her personal brand, particularly through things like social media and endorsements and other stuff, to get people to exposed to her personality, her style, her jokes, her quirkiness, whatever it is that she does. And then people like that. And now they're fans of her above and beyond whether or not she fights. She's got a fan base that she built in. And that's a great thing. Oscar De La Hoya, when he was talking about Ryan Garcia, he said fighters nowadays have the opportunity to make so much money that we didn't have when I was fighting. And that's all because of social media. It offers people tremendous opportunities to reach directly out to fans like they've never had in the past. And then through that, they're able to monetize it and do a whole bunch of things. It's awesome. So we've established all that, and she's got that. If she stops fighting, will her stock drop a little bit? And the answer is yeah, I think it will. You stop seeing her associated with the UFC, you stop seeing her on all the UFC stuff, you stop seeing her on all of those commercials and branding and when the fight's coming up and all of those things, and she just starts going off completely on her own and she does her thing, she'll still absolutely be able to make money, but her stock will drop. She's never indicated for 1 second that she's not going to continue to fight. As a matter of fact, she said, I'm only 26 years old. Of course I'm going to continue to fight. I plan to have a long career. Her and her husband are a fighter. As a matter of fact, he's currently fighting at 185 pounds in Bellator. Maybe it's 170. Not sure. But I think the only question is, does she re-up with the UFC or does she move over to Bellator? There's a little bit of competition there. If she moves over to Bellator, she's not going to have as bright of a spotlight on her. So how she markets herself and how she builds her own brand, how much money is going to, directly affect how much money she brings in, because she's not going to have that star power and that spotlight on her in Bellator that the UFC brings. Or does she re-sign with the UFC? Take a smaller contract, get paid a little bit less money, right? Eat a big slice of that humble pie, knowing that she turned in a dud of a performance on this last one and she was gambling on herself and the gamble didn't work out. And instead of that, takes that, but then continues to utilize that brighter spotlight that comes with it and makes a whole bunch of money on the side. I mean, she's got possibilities. She's still really young. She's got opportunities in front of her. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. Money in the UFC, what the athletes get and what's available to them has really been a hot topic lately. And I think the way this all played out with Paige VanZant is really informative. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think she's going to re-sign with the UFC? Is she going to go over to Bellator? Does she really make more money outside of the Octagon? Let me know.